Since 2007, more than 50% of the world's population have been living in cities. They are the powerhouse of our global economy. Cities provide us with unimaginable opportunities, great resources, and endless options for dinner. That being said, cities are affected by COVID like no other place.
The coronavirus recession eviscerating the revenue that local governments need to keep essential services going.
2/3 of people would consider moving if their jobs let them telework from home.
However, many middle-class people have been struggling to continue their lives in big cities. With the pandemic, the situation for them is bad. Today, 47% of college graduates can work remotely in the United States. Yet, most of the middle class cover the informal economy in the big cities, and their work cannot be remote. Since cities are vulnerable to many correlated risks, either natural or human-made, what is the future for big cities then?
Cities like New York rebounded pretty spectacularly from, hitting rock bottom in the 70s and 80s. And there's actually been a lot of growth and a lot of economic opportunity.
Cities offer incredible opportunities for young people and entrepreneurs. They start new businesses, find new jobs, buy from local shops. That is what cities have to offer, a place where markets arise and flourish. But then, COVID happened. That flipped the progress in big cities upside down. The diversity was no longer an asset and stores and businesses were shut down. Let's take Manhattan and Queens as an example. These two boroughs of New York are 25-minute subway ride away from each other. When New York City was the epicenter of the pandemic, Queens had an infection rate of almost 4.5 times higher than downtown Manhattan. But don't get me wrong, it's not the dense population that drives the numbers up. It is the socio-economic factors. These cities allow the rich and the poor to share the same subway. At times of a pandemic, that becomes a threat rather than an opportunity.
How can you avoid being so tightly packed around other people?
The busiest block in New York and possibly the world was almost empty when I was there.
The pandemic also hit the other elements of the city, making the social life there impossible. The closing of restaurants, bars, cinema theaters means so much more than not being able to sit down and eat. It means these employees and business owners are suffering too.
We had to shut down our entire distribution center in San Francisco in about 12 hours. So now we're a team of about 20 instead of a little over 200.
This is one of the reasons that forces many people to leave, especially for millennials. Many young people came to the city to experience that environment. And now they have left because they cannot afford living in the city without its perks anymore.
Sadly, I am leaving New York City. A lot of the things that I like to do and the reasons I moved to New York City no longer exist.
This has not been an easy choice for me. I've decided I'm leaving New York City.
I've been on furlough since March, so I've been quarantining for months upon months now.
Millennials live by their experiences, and cities have been an amazing source of never-ending diversity for them. With COVID, that diversity slowly disappears. Everyone is going back to their parents' houses. But Nolan believes that going back is temporary.
Once things get mostly back to normal, cities are still going to be the places that you have to go. I don't imagine a lot of young people will want to continue to live with their parents forever. I love my parents, but I would go a little crazy if I had to continue living with them forever. Cities have taken growth for granted in many ways. You go to a planning meeting in a place like San Francisco, and people are complaining about too many people moving to San Francisco. People are complaining about all these newcomers who are coming here and driving up rents. Well, good news, you don't have that problem anymore. You could potentially have an even worse problem, which is your population declines. If cities dealing with incredible growth looks bad, just wait until you see cities dealing with a shrinking population. It's not pretty. We already kind of know what this looks like. You look at cities like Detroit or Cleveland, which have had long-term population declines. And the problems that they face don't even compare to the problems that growing cities like San Francisco or Seattle face.
But this time, cities will need to do more. To avoid a complete rollback, cities need to be more flexible. And that means policies. Cities need to implement more flexible policies to be tantalizing again. Even if people have easy access to the vaccine this year, the lost office space will cost the cities a lot of money. According to Nicholas Bloom of Stanford University, urban expenditures overall could drop by 1/3. That means a lot fewer taxes for the local governments. And that means fewer services.
Cans were being emptied every day pre-pandemic. They're now being picked up
just 3 times a week.
Major budget cuts to key services could ravage communities that depend on buses and subways every day.
Lawmakers are having to deal with the reality of the economic situation posed by the pandemic.
You know, a more sustainable way to look at this would be, what are the core services that we need to get right? Where are the spaces where we can make cuts? And then they need to get back to the business of pulling people back in and making the case.
Empty office spaces should turn into residential buildings to overcome housing and zoning problems. Outdoor dining should be encouraged, and yes, outdoor drinking should be legal. More pedestrian areas and better public transportation are musts now. Cities should turn these threats into opportunities for themselves. Stay tuned for the next episode on the movie industry. Stay libertarian.